Hello there, welcome to Evolution. This is my short review of the Alesis V25 25 key MIDI controller keyboard. Being based in the UK, I picked this up for £57, but it's available throughout the whole world over the internet. Well, the first thing I'd like to say, for a MIDI controller keyboard for £57, the build quality is very solid. Usually with these controller keyboards in this price range, they can feel very plasticky. The keys don't feel weighted, or they don't feel heavy enough. The overall feel normally for a £57 keyboard is cheap plastic, not something that you'd want to sit for hours and play on. But as I say, the Alesis V25 for its price range is amazing. The build quality is actually something that you just would not expect for this money. It's solid. The keys are they're not fully weighted, but they're very nice and solid. They're hard to push. They give a nice resistance. They just feel, you can feel like you're playing a normal piano to a certain degree. So that's one of the first key points I'd like to point out about this, is the build quality is superb. The second thing you'll notice that it comes with 8 fully assignable pads. Again, for a keyboard of this budget, you would not expect to find any pads at all, but on this one you get 8 fully assignable pads, and the pad quality again is very solid. If you tap them lightly, you will get a light MIDI note. If you hit them hard, you'll get a hard MIDI note. So they're very responsive. They're good for filling in little parts. If you're thinking about using the Alesis V25 live, these will be perfect for triggering samples. Again, you can trigger the sample lightly with a light velocity or a light volume, or if you wanted to, you could have a higher volume or a higher velocity, purely depending on how hard you hit those pads. Again, for £57, that is amazing. You would not expect any pads, and you certainly wouldn't expect pads that have that are that responsive. So that is my first point. My second point is on this model, the 25 keys. As I said just a minute ago, they are very solid. They're not fully weighted, but you could be playing a real piano. You know, they're obviously plastic, they're not ivory, but they give a nice resistance, and as I say, you feel like you are playing a proper piano. And if, like me, you use the keys for the drums and strings, especially the drums, it's nice how solid they are. You can really hit them, really get into the music. They don't feel plasticky, they don't feel like they're going to break. And again, for live purposes, if you're using these to trigger samples, this is perfect. You want something beefy, you want something with heavy keys, otherwise you just can't get into the music. You're just going to be worried that the thing's going to break halfway through a gig, and which is obviously something that you don't want. The Alesis is USB. According to Alesis themselves, it is plug and play. I use this with Cubase's Elements 8. And I would like to say that is definitely plug and play. I literally got it out the box, plugged it in, and it was there. Once I assigned my MIDI track, made sure that the V25 was selected, picked some samples through Prologue, straight away I had sound, straight away I could make beats, straight away I could, you know, assign strings, and I could assign pianos, whatever I wanted. Literally straight from the box. I can confirm, especially with Cubase's Elements 8, that this was plug and play. In a way that's just as well, because it has no MIDI out. So this can't be put through any audio and MIDI interface. It can't be put through any hardware, unless that hardware has a USB in, which is pretty rare. In fact, I'm not even sure if that even exists. You'll have to look that up yourself, I'm not totally sure. But as far as MIDI out, it hasn't got. So you are only going to be using this via USB. So it being plug and play is pretty essential, because you've got no other option. You just plug it in and that is it. As I say, the pads are assignable. The Alesis V25 comes with its own software, which makes assigning different sounds to those 8 pads and different sounds to those keys very easy. It also has a transpose wheel and a pitch wheel, which work absolutely perfectly again through the plug and play. I didn't have any problems using those, they were actually fine. There's 4 assignable knobs at the top. Again, you can assign whatever you like to those knobs, and again it just seems to work. I mean, I can only talk through with Cubase Elements 8. I can only talk on that behalf, but as far as Cubase Elements 8, this works absolutely perfectly. It does everything you want it to do. It's built nice and solid. The plug and play works perfectly. I guess the only issue for some people is that it's only 25 keys, but they do a V49, which is obviously 49 keys. If you've got the room, I would recommend going for the V49, but being a small home studio I run here, with a lack of room, the V25 was perfect. As long as you can live with lowering the octave and highering the octave if you want to do, you know, bigger piano pieces. But as I say, if you can afford it, the V49 would be a better investment. You could have more samples that you can trigger assigned to the keys, especially in the live setup. You could pretty much have your whole set list assigned to the individual keys. So if you've got the room and the budget, the V49 is the one I would recommend. But if you're on a tight budget, small amount of space, the V25 is a perfect investment. As I say, the main points: 8 assignable drum pads, lovely heavy solid keys, and the overall build quality for the price of £57 is absolutely spot on. Absolutely amazed with the product, and the plug and play works perfectly. In my opinion, there's not much else you could want from a MIDI controller keyboard. Oh, just one other point. There is an input on the back for a sustain pedal. So again, for live purposes, you could have a pedal assigned to this keyboard, and you could, for your samples, you could use the sustain side of things. In my studio, I don't see the necessity for that. But as I say, for live, that's just another option you can have. So this has been Evolution. This has been my short review of the Alesis V25. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to my channel. In the future, I'll be doing reviews of the UR22 Mark II Steinberg interface. I've got some AKG headphones that I'll be reviewing, and I'm actually going to do some fairly in-depth reviews of Cubase Elements 8. I'm also going to do some troubleshooting with Cubase. There is a couple I've heard there's a couple of issues that people are getting using Elements 8. So I'm going to go over those. You know, just for example, the Cubase not recognizing your keyboard, or not being able to assign audio to certain tracks. Watch out for videos on those. I will be explaining those a bit more in depth. I'm going to be doing some tutorials on how to use Cubase, and also how to use the software that comes with Cubase, Prologue, and the different beat making softwares you can get. So subscribe to my channel, and look out for some more reviews in the future.